COVID and dying. I mean, this is so inhumane. Talk about cruel and unusual punishment. And then it's cruel and unusual punishment for an outdated crime that they shouldn't have been put into prison for the first place. It's really, I mean, historians are going to look at this and say, what happened to our society that we did this to people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many people in there that are coming up towards the end of their sentences anyway. I'm hoping that the governor, in one of his addresses in the next few weeks or so, will announce that there's been some movement on that front, because I know that there's been talk of it at least for the last few weeks. And they did have their first case of COVID-19. It was in Bridgewater State Prison, I think, about a week ago. And it came the day after Senator Warren and Representative Presley had written to President Trump asking him to, make some moves on this front. So hopefully, it's been in the works for a couple of weeks now. Somebody will start taking notice of it at the top, and they'll really make some changes.
I wouldn't hold your breath with President Trump. That kind of suffering does not register on him. The only thing that registers for him is what helps him. But someone like Governor Baker would care. But he needs to be acting yesterday, not eventually, because it takes time. It's a bureaucracy. It takes time to get people out. And as I mentioned before, it takes time to find out what to do with these people. Again, you can't just put them outside of the prison and say, have a good life. You've got to find a place for them to live, for them to shelter, for them to isolate, find something for them to eat. They need resources. So this is a process. And again, it needs to start yesterday, not eventually, because this is happening now. We're expecting the peak on April 15th. Right now, it is March 31st. This is happening now.
It must be very difficult to speed up a process like that because, it's an emergency situation. But I would imagine that they have something in place to execute something like that, right?
Well, I think Governor Baker, even though I disagree with him over the recreational cannabis stores, I think overall he's done quite a good job, I have to say. Mm-hmm. And I can't even imagine how many competing demands are on his time, energy, and attention. So, you bring up an issue and it's your issue and you feel like this is the most important thing ever. But he must have 1,000 issues that are the most important issue ever bombarding him every hour. So it just must be very difficult to juggle all these different competing demands. And you can't do everything. But certainly this, to me, seems like a really huge priority. You look at what's happening in New York and in Rikers, they're a little bit ahead of us. And you hear about all these guards that are sick and now all these prisoners that are sick, and they're just expecting a massacre. And we could prevent that. So it seems to me that this would be a very high priority. But again, I just have to say, this is so complex, and he's trying to get ventilators and make sure the hospitals have enough supplies and trying to make sure that the economy doesn't completely collapse and figure out how long to keep a stay-at-home order. It must be very complicated. So I do understand there are a lot of extraordinarily complex demands on his time and attention. So, it's hard to throw blame at anybody in the moment, because I know it's just an unprecedented and extraordinarily complicated situation. I mean, I don't have any problem throwing blame at Trump because he's just screwed up every conceivable component of this from the very beginning to the very end. But it does seem like Baker's doing a good job and trying to do a good job. And nobody's going to get it completely right. But again, I do think that opening up the recreational stores is critical. And I think paying attention to these prisoners that don't need to be in prison and are just going to catch it and get sick for no reason is a priority to me, at least, as well. And I really hope he pays close attention to these two issues.
The last thing that I wanted to ask you about is a little bit of myth busting.
I've been doing some of that. I awarded someone the Alex Berenson Award for complete bullshit over the internet because he kept saying that CBD prevents and cures coronavirus.
Yeah, so this is, I was reading Marijuana Moment this morning and I saw your tweet pop up. They've quoted you and Dan Adams and a bunch of other local people replying to Kyle Turley, who a quick Google search has taught me was an NFL player. So what is it that Kyle Turley has been claiming, and what is it that you've been pushing back about?
Well, in essence, Kyle's been saying that CBD prevents and cures coronavirus. And his argument is basically that CBD enhances the immune system, therefore it prevents and cures coronavirus. And I've been pushing back very strongly. I've been saying, Kyle, say CBD does enhance the immune system. We don't know if that helps or hurts coronavirus. They're saying, for example, you might not want to take ibuprofen because that suppresses or that dampens the immune system. The immune system is how we respond to coronavirus and how the body mounts a response. So say hypothetically CBD does enhance or suppress your immune system. Say it suppresses your immune system, that would compromise your body's response to the virus because your body wants to respond vigorously. It would help you in an autoimmune disease because it would dampen your response to the autoimmune disease. I mean, there's no magical way that turning up or turning down the immune system helps every disease. In some diseases, it helps to enhance the immune system, and in other ways, it helps to suppress it. It's not a simple thing. And Kyle has this magical thinking that you just add CBD and everything will get better. But it's really so vastly more complex than that. And first of all, we don't know how coronavirus works very well. It's the new virus. Second of all, we don't know how CBD works very well. We barely know what receptors it works on. And to make these vague leaps of logic with a heavy dose of magical thinking is so dangerous and so reckless. And Kyle knows nothing and is just basing his logic, again, on these like extraordinarily simplistic platitudes about how CBD improves the immune system. But again, that could make coronavirus better or worse. We just don't know. There's no evidence. There's just as much evidence that eating 6 hot dogs a day can help prevent or cure coronavirus. I'm a huge proponent of cannabinoids, but I'm a huger proponent of not making false claims that will mislead people and get them to waste money on Kyle's crappy products or get them to have a false sense of security and well-being. If people think CBD is going to help them and then they don't social distance or they don't take whatever we eventually figure out will help coronavirus, such as a vaccine or whatever medication may in fact work, that's going to be tragic. So, Kyle was like, make my day, report me to the authorities. So I did call the FDA. I mean, these people need to be shunned and expelled from the cannabis community because they are doing so much more harm to our cause than the people at Smart Approaches to Marijuana could ever do. It is absolutely astounding. I mean, they're just charlatans. They're snake oil salespeople, and we need to unite against them and boot them out of our community.
And you mentioned Smart Approaches to Marijuana, also known as SAM. I saw that they are also sort of pushing something online that has no grounding in evidence.
They're saying that cannabis causes the coronavirus or makes it worse. There's no evidence whatsoever that using marijuana increases your chance of coronavirus. I would say that, you shouldn't smoke heavily because anything, cigarettes or marijuana, because that can give your lungs a constant state of irritation, but that has nothing to do per se with marijuana or THC. That's completely disingenuous on the part of Smart Approaches to Marijuana. And I actually, in my tweet, said that all doctors affiliated with Smart Approaches to Marijuana must resign. I didn't name any names because there's some doctors in my institution that work for Smart Approaches to Marijuana, and I don't want to cause a fight. But it's absolutely unconscionable that they would say something like that. They're just fear-mongering. Smart Approaches to Marijuana has about the same credibility level as the Trump administration on the coronavirus. And I just can't believe that there are actual doctors that are part of this group. They're literally this bogus propaganda group. There are credible ways to be unenthusiastic about cannabis. There are credible ways to question the research, to question the utility, to say, hey, I don't think this has been proven enough, or I think this could be harmful, or I don't think this should be legalized, or I don't think we're there yet. They're absolutely credible ways. I have friends that are skeptical, that I debate this with. But
Mm-hmm.
smart approaches to marijuana is not in that category. These people are shameless propagandists that bend the truth. They're not in the category of respectable people who honestly have a sincere opinion that they express. They're not intellectuals or academics. They're propagandists. And
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that they need to be shunned as well. I think they do more harm to their cause than good, just like the Kyle Turleys do more harm to our cause than good. I think you have to be credible to get anywhere. I think when you take these cheap shots, it's like penny wise and pound foolish. You may gain some like immediate points because you can convince a couple gullible people superficially, but then you erode your credibility, and in the longer term, you actually do more harm to your cause because you sort of take yourself out of contention because no one believes anything that you say in the long term.
Well, here's hoping that somebody starts to spread some actual facts. If we ever find out any, I'm afraid that cannabis research is probably put on hold along with a lot of other research at the moment. So while there is maybe at the moment no research that's going to happen that's going to prove one way or another whether cannabis helps or hurts coronavirus, it's definitely probably for your best health to ignore Kyle, Turley, and Sam.
I agree. They're sort of the same thing on other extremes, sort of like the very far right and the very far left sort of start to be the same thing. And like religions, when they get super fundamentalist, all start to blend together. I think when you start to get really extremist positions, even if they're on the opposite side of an issue, they sort of start to resemble each other. That's my personal theory, having been a philosophy major.
Yeah, it's almost like instead of an elongated spectrum, it's circular.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something zen about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Let's end there. I like that. That's chill. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Not like you've got a whole lot else going on. So if you turned me down, I would have been very upset. But
Oh, I could never turn you down. And this is fun. This is such a great respite from the craziness of like dealing with COVID this and COVID that. It's very stressful. I'm telling you, this is a stressful time to be a doctor. I just want you and everybody else to stay home and to stay healthy, sane, and just try to remember that we'll get through this.
Thank you so much for talking to me, Dr. Grinspoon. Stay safe, and hopefully we will check in again soon and see how you're doing.
Okay, always a pleasure.
Take care. And now for your New England cannabis news. After Governor Charlie Baker said recreational pot shops were non-essential businesses that had to close down over COVID, he got sued by some of the state's recreational companies. And the judge decided Governor Baker was right. The state's recreational pot shops are not essential, so that leaves you to go support your local entrepreneur. Patriots fans, I have some good news. The NFL has ratified a new agreement with the Players Union, meaning any footballer who pops for marijuana will no longer be suspended. Maybe now Gronkowski will return to the game. And the virus has officially delayed the opening of recreational cannabis companies in Maine. The director of the state's Office of Marijuana Policy said it looks like the plan to open up shop in spring is just unrealistic. Lastly, 2 major cannabis magazines owned by High Times are now on hold due to COVID. Dope Magazine and Culture Magazine are halting production during the pandemic. But good news, Different Leaf Magazine is still available right to your mailbox. Just go to differentleaf.com, 4 issues for $20. In case you've forgotten what day it is, you're not alone, but heads up, Monday is actually 4/20. Whether you're locked down or not, it's definitely a weird time in the world, but the cannabis community is still going strong. So to help you enjoy the holidays at home, here are a couple of virtual events that you can find online. 420 for a Cause, Chronic Relief, and Coast to Coast Live Showcase Boston. Make sure wherever you're listening to us, you hit that subscribe button, and make sure you're following us on social media at Different Leaf, and I'm on social media at Brit the British. Thanks to our producer Andrea Maraskin, and thanks to Homebody for the music.